company doesn't have.
Oh, we're live.
Yeah.
We
Hey,
dealt with
everybody.
that with the tree company a couple years ago. It's a huge, huge pain. I was like, what loyalty? I use you guys every year and
I
you won't
know.
come out to cut off my tree limb? My God.
It's big business. Some big company bought our propane company, and now they don't care if you have no heat.
Classic.
Just
Yeah.
put you on hold. They'll
Scenario.
hopefully
Mhm.
music is nice.
Oh, wow.
The heat in
I
my
got tea.
office works this year for the first time since we've lived in this house. So I just want to say that it's a spectrum.
So
And-
you're winning. Megan's losing.
I'm
We
glad you're
are
warm, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, this
Transitioning
radiator
into
is
a
actually warm to
conversation
the
about
touch.
Fish Show, which is very much on par with Fish 2016. I just want to say.
Oh,
No heat.
No heat.
there's
Sporadic heat.
There's a lot
Sporadic
of
heat. Heat you
Sporadic
can't
heat.
depend on.
Heat that when you're like, oh my God, this all sounds amazing. And then you're like,
Yes.
huh? What?
But what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Why are they playing
I
this
went back and
now?
listened to RJ's trying to start this podcast, but I'm just going to pretend we're already in the middle of it. So I went back and
Do
listened
it.
to a lot of 2016 stuff this year, which I don't usually do every week. People may have
Same.
noticed.
Oh,
No, you
that,
do it
yeah,
every
yeah.
week.
Yeah, yeah, every week.
I did, and I was just like, oh, I saw these. This was really good. Oh, I like this was really good. This, yeah, it's fun.
So
It's
many
cool
good
stuff to talk about.
jams.
I can't
Really
wait to
good
start this
jams.
podcast.
I guess we can do
Tompkins
that
with the
now that-
very fitting message here. of Thanks for making us toasty. My God.
I'm trying.
The-
We got like
The comment section coming in hot. Love it. Metaphorically speaking, of course, not like actual heat. Because
No.
sorry, Megan.
Sorry, Megan.
I'm fine. I have blankets. I have tea. I'm good conversation.
You're clutching that mug of tea as though it is going to generate body heat throughout your
It's there to
entire
save
body.
her
It's
life.
working. Yeah. It's gonna get cold soon though, because we talk too
Life-saving
much.
tea.
Well, I guess can we start the podcast?
Yeah.
Should
Let's
We
go.
don't usually start with the train wreck, but
Well,
why not?
it always starts with a personal story. All right. Well, we're in 2016 now officially, and I'm sure we all have a lot to say. We are on a time schedule today. By the person who makes the lists is going to have the least time to talk about his list. So we're going to see how this all plays out.
One
But
word
we are
answers
gonna-
for everything today, I promise.
We're going to bring you lists because that's what the people want. This is the beginning of the best week of the year, and capped off by the
Yes.
best day of the year next Saturday. And if you know why, you know why. But if you don't, I can tell you about that another time. But it's so exciting. God, what a great week to be alive. All
Hope
right,
you guys have been filming each other.
what?
I hope you guys have been filming each other to learn each other's plays.
Oh my god, I
man.
get that joke.
You got
See?
it.
Yeah, I
See?
get that joke.
Oh my God, what
Am I
it's
in the
gonna
right
be?
podcast?
It's gonna be epic. Okay, we're talking about 2016. I have some 2016 stories, but someone else tell me what you were up to in 2016. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
I was surviving.
I'll start. In January of 2016, a year in which I was a member of this podcast, I broke my back sledding, which I don't recommend. I mean, I recommend sledding. Just don't break your back. That's actually the wrong thing.
That's not fun.
Mm-mm.
But I was able to get well enough to go see Fish in the year 2016 and managed to attend lock-in with I may have left the cane in the truck, but I definitely brought it. And yeah, so it was quite a year.
You saw
It's quite a
Vegas,
year.
right?
I saw Vegas, I saw lock-in, and that was it. But I also went to Scotland in the spring, which is actually the first big thing I did after my injury. I did podcasts like from my lazy boy in a back brace with the mic kind of propped over me. RJ probably remembers that. It was pretty uncomfortable. But we did it. And now we're here.
Man, that was crazy. That was crazy when that happened.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Can I just share two positive things that happened to me in 2016?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Most of the year was a wash, and I don't want to talk about most of the year, but the two things that were really good that happened, one of which was Chicago Cubs won the World Series, which saying that in retrospective, it still is absolutely insane. my, at the time, 92-year-old grandfather turned off the World Series. He grew up 5 minutes from Wrigley Field. He was at World Series games in the 30s and 40s. He turned it off when the game was tied in the ninth inning. Went to bed. He said, "They're not going to break my heart again. I can't see this in person." And about an hour later, my grandmother, his wife, was banging on his door and said, "Turn it on. You're not missing this." Because they came back for the rain delay and they won. It was the greatest game I've ever seen in my entire life. Nothing will ever top it, ever. The other thing was, went to 12/30/16, show we are not talking about. And in the concourse, I met a guy who I knew on Twitter named David Goldstein. And we ended up talking over a couple beers. We had met previously, just very briefly, at Wrigley Field over the summer for the fish shows, but we met there and we both threw out that we were thinking about starting fish podcasts. And 3 months later, we would launch Beyond the Pond. So it was a very memorable, important moment for me. But Meg, what were you in 2016?
I love that. I also met Dave Goldstein in the concourse at MSG, so I can relate to that moment. I love
He's always
that.
wondering.
Same.
He's always
Yeah,
wondering.
yeah. And I also love Beyond the Pond, so I love hearing that origin story. I didn't hear
Thank you.
that before. Yeah, 2016, I was just doing mom shit. I was trying to figure out what to do with my life now that my kids were getting older and like in school all the time. I was doing a lot of yoga. I was starting to substitute teach again and decide if I wanted to go back into teaching, and just starting to listen to a lot more fish regularly. After Fare Thee Well, it was like a steady climb of like fish being regularly in my life again, kind of like cracked open next year, 2017, which we'll talk about. But yeah, I just saw the 2016 Year's Eve show, the Petrichor show. I brought my husband and two friends. None of the three of them are fans, and 5 hours of fish is a lot when you're not a fan, but they all drank a ton of beer and thought it was cool when it rained on stage, and I had a great time.
That's awesome. I started the year at MSG seeing the first and second of January
yeah.
shows, which was
Yeah.
great. And then I saw 2 shows at the Man and then 2 shows in Alpharetta, and those are the only shows I saw. But at the Man, my friend Craig, who I was with at JRAD on Saturday night, who you guys know, he in the parking lot introduced me to Tom, because Tom was like thinking about starting a podcast, and Craig was like, you got to meet my friend. And so then that led to like some interesting stuff over the past 7 years or 8 years almost.
Very cool
Crazy.
stuff.
That's
Crazy.
awesome.
And then like in November, there was like a day in November that was like the worst day of my whole life. And then a month later in December, our twins were born, and that was a very good day. So it was a weird year, really weird year,
Very
all
weird
around.
year.
Strange. So what do we need to know, Meg? Should we go straight there right now?
Let's do it. Let's go to Meg's Corner.
I think we should do it.
Let's do it. Yeah,
It's
so
cold there today.
it's really cold in Meg's Corner, but I'm wearing a turtleneck. I'm pulling my Steve Jobs look out. In Meg's Corner, even though it's cold, we've got all the information you need. In 2016, there were 47 shows, which is quite a bit up from 2015 when we only had 30. They, like RJ said, started the year off at MSG to cap off that 2015 New Year's Eve run. They are going to go to Mexico for the first time, 3 nights in the Riviera Maya. Then they're going to have summer tour. They start in the Midwest, go the Northeast, and then out west, play like the Gorge in California. Then Trey Band's going to play the Peach Festival and the Vertex Festival in Colorado. Then they're going to take a month off, and then they play Lock-In in Virginia. And Labor Day closes out the summer once again. And then in October, they are going to go onto The Tonight Show with Fallon to promote Big Boat, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then they're going to go on fall tour. They're going to play the Southeast with Bob Weir sitting in Nashville, which I kind of forgot about until I went through this again. They're going to go to Florida, Texas, and then Vegas for the second time for the Halloween run and cover David Bowie's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and The Spider from Mars, and then do their New Year's Eve run at MSG. Trey is also going to perform on Prairie Home Companion that fall. If you're an NPR nerd like me, I remember that. Mike Gordon is also going to tour quite a bit this year with his band. And then I'm going to actually talk about the albums first and then go back to the debuts, because I have a quote I want to read, which I think you guys might enjoy. So for albums this year, Big Boat was released in October of 2016, the 14th studio album, produced again by Bob Ezrin and recorded at the Barn. There are 2 archival releases. There's going to be November 7th, 1996 from Lexington, Kentucky, at the Rupp Arena. And there's going to be September 14th, 1999, the Boise show released. Love that show
Oof.
so much. There's also going to be Live Bait 12 released. And that's it for albums. As for debuts, there are 12 original, mostly the Big Boat songs, and then, of course, all of the Bowie covers that are going to be played. But there's also one song that's going to be debuted. And I thought this song was older than 2016. And I'm going to read you a quote and ask if you can tell me what song this is. So this is a quote by John Fishman. "It was the late afternoon of a long day, being more wrong than I normally am, in the context of a lifetime's worth of such days in endless succession up to that point, when it finally came flying out of me in a moment of profound exasperation. I was astounded at the realization that it took nearly 51 full years of life for the conscious awareness of perhaps the single most obvious pattern in my daily existence since birth, beyond bodily functions, to develop enough for the communication center of my physical body to finally print out the observation in a memo to self, not easily forgotten, that you get your ass handed to you every
Every day.
day. Every day."
Was it the Gorge where that debuted?
I think so. Let's see here.
That's right. I don't know.
7:15.
Yeah, that is
Is that the Gorge?
Night One of the Gorge. Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
That song summarizes 2016 on so many levels for so many people.
Right?
My goodness.
Yeah.
Just
So I had
very
to read that
appropriate for
quote.
the time.
Hilarious. Also, just amazing that a song like that can come out in 2016. Like, it just seems like such an old school kind of Fish song to me. It's such a 1.0 vibe to it.
Totally.
Yeah,
Love it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Meg.
You're welcome.
Before we get into the show and talk about in Brian's list, should we listen to some 2016 recollections from our people?
You get some
Let's
voicemails?
do it.
I got a couple.
Let's do it.
Hit it.
It's gonna happen-
Sweet.
It's gonna happen right now. It's gonna happen. Let me try to remember how to do this. Yep, we got it. Okay, ready? Nope, that's not gonna happen here. Not on my watch.
Hey everybody, me again.
It's me again.
I actually just saw 3 shows in 2016. I went to Portland, went to Great Woods a couple days later or so, and I hit 12:30. I think there was a tweezer and stuff like that. I think that the 2 summer shows weren't great, but they weren't terrible, but they weren't great. But I had a really good time. And then that 12:30 show, I think, was really good, and I had a really good time. But I'm guessing, considering that this is a weird year between Magnaball and Bakers, that you guys might be looking for a little bit kind of like, hey, what's going on here, Trey, kind of episode today. So if you guys want a metaphor, I will definitely tell you that or me to develop a motif, I definitely tell you that the light structure that they introduced, everybody's like, first they used the light structure in 20 years. That was kind of like a balloon, when you let go of a balloon and it goes, right? And then also the air conditioning wasn't on in Portland. It was 100 degrees inside. But topping that all off, on my favorite show of the bunch, on 12:30, my friend flew into JFK or LaGuardia and took a cab into the city and flown in from California. He's one of those weird guys who has trouble with a flight. If he flies, it's like he gets sick.
One of those guys.
We picked him up. He wasn't doing well. Tried to help him out, and we took him to the hotel and got him some food and whatnot. And all of a sudden, we look over like a little baby. He's got. By the way, this was before the show. This is like 4 in the evening, 5 in the evening. He's got cream cheese from the bagel all over his face. So if you want a metaphor for 2016, had some fun, but a totally sober guy at 5 at night was like eating bagels like a baby in a hotel in Manhattan. All right, goodbye.
Wow. I did not expect that to go there. That was
I
cool.
know. I
Yeah, that all
really
tracks
chuckle and everyone.
exactly
Lot of
the way
different
I feel
directions.
about 2016. So,
Well, let's. Can we talk about that briefly? Just our overall thoughts about 2016 and Fish. And do you agree with that cream cheese take?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like to me, it reminds me 2016 a lot of 1996. It's kind of
Yeah.
like this valley between two giants. You've got like 95 where they're reaching this like artistic, creative, professional peak. And then 97 where they kind of reinvent themselves musically. And you think of what 96 was when they're like covering Remain in Light and finding this collective groove. And then 2016 is kind of similar in that it's like in between this like banner year with like Magnaball and this incredible year of jamming and just like really like just improv heights, I feel like, in 2015. And then 2017, they're moving towards this total shift in set listing and this Baker's Dozen kind of accomplishment so triumphant. And you think about what has to happen in between those two accomplishments. It's just, there's a lot of parallels to me between those 2 years.
Agree. I think also like to further that, comparison to 96, 95 is kind of the end of something. Like they reach a
Yeah.
peak on 12/31/95 that is a sound that they've been kind of experimenting and perfecting in a lot of cases for the last 5-6 years, and arguably since they started. And it all kind of peaks at that MSG show. And where they go from there. And this is a band that is in constant evolution, is constantly changing. They're never just like happy with a sound and saying, cool, that is the sound we're going to play with for the rest of time. And so you kind of reach this peak of 3.0 in 2015, probably at Magnaball, where
Yeah.
everything they'd been playing with, the stylistic choices, tones, there's not as many effects as we're going to hear in the post Baker's Dozen era, where they're going to kind of experiment in that sort of way. Set lists are not predictable, but there's a format to them which will kind of be blown up as we move into Magnaball and they start, or excuse me, the Baker's Dozen, and they start to figure out like this song that's usually played in this part of the show can be played here, and it can be jammed out, and it can change the dynamics of the show. 2016 is that evolution to whatever that next step is. And part of the reason I picked this show was you have really weird set list choices, which work in some cases and don't work in other cases. And you have jams that kind of pop up and just burble to the surface, and then they kind of disappear. And it's the band just like figuring out what is the next step here. And I think, one last thing is he mentioned the lighting rig. It's the only lighting rig that's lasted 1 year. And I think it proved a technological, advancement and shift for Kuroda. But a year later, he's going to go back just to lights, and they're going to move. And that is going to be the technological change that is going to work the best for him, is going to work the best for the band. And it still has stuck to this day, although it's gone through some iterations. So you see the band and the whole Phish Inc. kind of figuring a few things out, some of which works, a lot of which doesn't work that well. And as a result, it's kind of this up and down year.
It's funny. I have been known to kind of crap on 96 because it's the year I missed. But I'm gonna come off like the guy who always defends 96 right here and talk about 2016. I agree there are some ups and downs in this year, and the summer is just is okay. There's some good shit anywhere, everywhere. There's good stuff, but the fall I think is better, and I kind of think as Dick's, even though it is definitely not autumn, really the beginning of that, and this show is a good example. But by the time you get to Vegas, those Vegas shows I think are very good. There's some stuff here and there in those, but I think the Vegas shows are very good. And I'm not just saying it because I'm wearing my Vegas 2016 shirt today. I'm saying it because I was there. No, because I think it's true. There's some really good jamming, and it is what people usually say of 96, where 96 turns in the fall tour at Halloween, and that opens the door to 97. Here it happens a little sooner. It's not Halloween that does it necessarily, or maybe it's the rehearsal. I don't know, but it's great. And so I'm excited to get into this show.
Do you guys think that Phish will do a cover album for Halloween?
Ever?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think it's a coin flip. I think had Bowie not passed away at the start of the year and been such an influence on the band, I wonder if we're getting Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust. I wonder if we're getting another new album. I don't know. It seems like the new album is the thing that motivates them the most, but this felt like a very fitting tribute.
Yeah. I'm so glad we got this. I would trade Bowie still being alive for having seen this. But but
this was my dream pick in 2009, and the fact that they ended up doing it 7 years later just felt like, are you kidding me? It was amazing.
It's
I won't
amazing.
even tell you how much I was crying when I just saw the fish bill.
I bet.
Oh, I bet.
bet.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Brian Tompkins because he said, "Thank you for picking 7316," and then
Oh,
he said, "Oh man,
no.
I listened to the wrong show." But
He's not wrong. That MoMA dance from 7316.
Yeah, I
ruled.
love that. That's the SPAC shows. Yeah, that MoMA is
My
insane.
favorite quick hit ever, though, happened after this show. It was Craig Hillwig coming on, absolutely defending his eviscerating review on fish.net. And it was scathing. And I felt the same
I
way. And I
love
was just
that.
listening to it on the drive home from a 4th of July trip, just being like, thank you, Craig. Thank you for speaking the truth.
if anyone can do it, it's him. Okay, let's listen to one more voicemail and then we'll get into the show. Is that cool?
Yeah.
1 sec. Or maybe not into the show. Maybe into the next segment, which might not be the show. We don't really know yet. You never know what's going to happen next here on HF Pod. Okay. Oh no.
See, you never know.
Hey, HF Pod, this is Alex from Asheville. I wanted to throw in my 2 cents about 2016. I don't believe the show will make it for the selected slot for y'all's showing, but I just wanted to call out that likely the best moment of 2016, and I'm biased because I was there, was during the Gorge first night, 7:15. What's the use? They dropped it down to a whisper. Corroded cut the light. And it was just the crowd, the band, and the stars.
Mm.
Definitely best fish moment of my fish career. Just want to throw those 2 cents in there about 2016. Thank you so much for what you do. Bye-bye.
Love that.
It's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. I had a similar
The
experience
Gorge
at
is
Magna
just
Ball.
such an epic. Yeah, go on.
I
But-
would.
No, the Gorge is. I got to go to the Gorge at some point.
Me
That's
too.
the main thing.
Let's go
Visually
together.
stunning.
Okay.
I considered that show. I had like 8 shows picked for this year, and I considered that one because it is, you have like a 19 song first set that somehow opens with a tweezer, and then they just like play a bunch of fucking songs. And then the second set that on paper looks like an absolute mess, but works. Like everything segues really well. There's a lot of weird callbacks within songs and a lot of like micro jams. It's a really good show, a really good second set. I highly recommend people checking it out. But ultimately it got overtaken.
Brian, in our time that we have together, how much do you want to talk about 2016 outside of this show that you picked?
Very briefly, I'm just going to throw out just a couple quick things here. So television at this point in time, I mentioned this in the 2014 episode where we were really moving towards streaming, away from cable television, and shows that were really good were all coming out on streaming. This year, it like blows that up. Like Atlanta comes out, Stranger Things comes out, Westworld comes out, The Crown comes out,
Wow.
Insecure comes out. Like a lot of shows that will define the latter half of the 2010s debut during 2016. So it's a big kind of pivot year from a television standpoint. From a movie standpoint, there's not a lot of great movies, but the movies that are really great are awesome, and I would highly recommend people checking them out. Arrival, one of my favorite movies of all time. Manchester by the Sea, not really an upper, but definitely an important movie to watch.
So good though.
Unbelievable. This was the year that Star Wars decided to release an adult film in Rogue One, and it absolutely rules. Maybe the best 5 minutes to conclude a movie I've ever seen in my entire life. Moonlight won Best Picture. La La Land almost won Best Picture, and is it's a great movie. I love that movie. And then I just watched this the other week. This is a really funny movie, The Nice Guys, starring Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling as two down on their what's the phrase? I don't know. They're down on their luck. Detectives in the 1970s in a kind of Lebowski-esque setting. It's very, very funny. Really good shit.
I saw that in the theater. That movie is perfect. If
I
any
totally
movie
agree.
I've
should
never seen
have
it.
gotten a sequel but never did, and really never should, actually.
Right.
I'm going to recant. Like it seems like it would have been perfect for a franchise, but don't. Just leave it. Perfect
I've
film.
never even heard of
Enjoy
it. I feel like. Which
Yeah,
is
me
weird.
neither.
It
Yeah,
is.
So
If it
good.
had come out in like it's like a Coen Brothers type movie, just very funny. The closest comparison I can make is Lebowski. It is
Mhm.
but it's not quite.
No,
It's
but it's
slightly closer to real life.
yes. It's really good
Not as
stuff. And it's
exaggerated.
on I believe Netflix right now if you want to watch it. Albums really quickly. 2016 absolutely rules for records. I'm just going to give you a small handful, even though I'm looking at a giant list of albums that I wish I could say for all of you, but I have to be upstairs in 30 minutes to take over kids' duty. So Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Skeleton Tree, holy shit, what an incredible record. Bon Iver's 22 a Million, Radiohead's A Moon-Shaped Pool, the last Radiohead album. The Smile is not Radiohead. I don't understand why we're not getting more Radiohead, but oh my God, this album absolutely destroys me. David Bowie's Black Star. I think this was one of the first albums released in the year it was released. Jonathan, correct me.
It
This
was
was
in
released
January,
on a
it's
Friday
before he
and he
passed.
passed away on a Sunday.
That is insane.
Pretty close like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
First Angel Olsen record that really connected with me, My Woman, came out. Amazing stuff. Kevin Morby's singing Saw. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizards, Nonagon Infinity. We are about to enter total King Gizzard land where they're going to release like 10 albums a year for the next 5 or 6 years. Hamilton Leithauser and Rostam's I Had a Dream That You Were Mine. William Tyler's Modern Country. Riley Walker's Golden Sings That Have Been Sung. And Kendrick Lamar's Untitled Unmastered. A lot more out there. I'm forgetting a ton here. I'm leaving a ton off, but amazing year for records.
All right. Well, with that, I think it's time.
Let's do it.
Brian, we
Let's
are
do it.
entering our first Dick's show of the series. We are, I don't know. That's all I can really say. There might be other stuff, but maybe our first, let's just say it's our first September show, even though it's probably not. Some other
Maybe.
stuff.
It might be.
What do you got, Brian? You want to go straight into it?
Yeah. So this is Saturday Night at Dick's 2016. I will just say I think this is the second strongest Dick's year of the entire batch that they've played. Amazing run of shows here. Set 1, Slave to the Traffic Light. First time it opened a show since 11/5/88. Down with Z's, What's the Use in a Maze. Farmhouse, 5:55. Wolfman's Brother, Divided Sky, and the greatest cover in Fish's arsenal, Rock and Roll, as RJB shakes his head. RJB, let's turn to you first. What are your thoughts on this set and the way it ended? Actually, the way it began.
God, it's just like we've talked about this too much. I'm not going to say it again. I think
Check out the back catalog.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you that this is the energy is great in this show from the beginning. I think the Slave is such a strange opener because it doesn't. It's just like kind of like starts on the reverse energy that you would expect. Like it kind of is like it's just a slow way to start, but it works really well, and I think it's really. I wish they did it more. I think it's like a good way to ease in with some bliss. Yeah, I mean, it was really like much better than I remember it being, I guess, last time I listened to it, which was probably like the day after when we did, a quick hit or something. But what's that?
It's just laughing. It's same here. I hadn't listened to it probably since then.
And it's just like not something I go back to. And the Slave followed by the Down with Disease that ends in What's the Use is just, it's just great. I think the Down with Disease, I would like more first set Down with Diseases. So that the second set is open to more things.
Disease free.
Yeah. But I just thought like the whole set was really high energy. I really liked I thought Farmhouse was like a really nice break after the Maze, and even 5:55 was like, I don't know, it was a really fun set to listen to. I will say that, if you're gonna play rock and roll, like just jam it out. I mean, now like they got enough, then like a cover, it's like it's fine, but I guess I'm yearning for the years when rock and roll was a jam vehicle, and
it's fair.
It has not been jammed since 2013, and so
I know.
Like, what are we doing here? We're just
They're writing songs that can jam.
That is the crazy
Fair.
thing. Like this was Rock and Roll and Drowned in 2009 and 2010 were like the two most reliable jam vehicles. Maybe Disease and Tweezer on the original standpoint, and Light,
Mhm.
and then they wrote more songs, to Jonathan's point, that actually could jam. And suddenly they were like, we'll just play these songs rarely and we'll play them for 8 minutes.
Yeah, I mean it's mostly like a shtick at this point, but I can still do it because it's just like
It's a
it's fun.
feel good, triumphant moment. It's good.
No, I
It's a
haven't-
good
I
set
think he means
closer.
his bit is a shtick,
Yeah.
not Fish
Oh.
playing.
Yeah, yeah. My whole
come
thing
on.
about
I'm
this
on your
song is
side,
a shtick,
RJ.
and also I haven't seen it live since the Baker's Dozen. So like, what do I care? I'm not, I'm I'm kind of out
You're
at
not
this point.
affecting
out.
you with this.
That's all. But it was a good set, really fun to listen to.
I'll go. I didn't listen to this first set, but like twice, where I listened to the second a bunch this past week
Mhm.
because other than the Down with Disease, I think everything is pretty just solid good, which
Mhm.
is not a negative, right? Because it really does hold down. Slave is a great opener, and it is weird, RJ. I agree with everything you said, and it's cool because with Slave, and then the way what's the use in this set, and Divided Sky in this set, and then the way the show ends, you get like all of the like key Bliss things, not to mention Simple Jam, but I'm getting ahead of ourselves. So it's kind of a really cool show in that respect. Disease Jam is pretty cool. I really just like the solid kind of chunk. I actually love 555. I think more and more as we go through these years, I'm reminded how good a groove this song has, and
Mhm.
it's reinforced by being followed with Wolfman's, which almost it feels very similar when it gets in the initial groove of the Wolfman's, and yeah, so that's great. Nice Divided Sky. And then it could have been Character Zero to end set one, and
But it wasn't. It
but
was
yeah.
rock and
No, but it
roll.
wasn't. It's rock and roll. I loved rock and roll. I'm
Life was
just
saved.
playing with RJ.
Yeah.
It was fun. I can't wait to talk about set two though, because that's really where I live. There's some really great shit there.
Yeah, I love set two too, but I thought set one had some really interesting moments. I just think the flow of it's kind of weird. I think opening with Slave, like you were saying, RJ, it's really interesting. It's also really emotional. It has some really emotional peaks. And I think that's cool to like start off a show like that with some big feelings, which is great. I think that like this What's the Use is gorgeous, but it just feels weird to be in that space, that really like contemplative, spacey spot, third song in. I don't know, just like unless you're just going out there with the whole set, it just feels funny to be like in that kind of an emotional space and then pulled back into like a first set feeling with like Maze and Farmhouse and 555. But um my highlight of the set was the Wolfman's. I thought it got into some really interesting, like good funk. It was like really juicy, had like a really nice peak. Definitely my highlight of the set. And I love rock and roll as a set closer. I love this cover. And I also just think it's that chance to like sing those words about like rock and roll saving your life. Like that's so fun. So I'm fine if they don't jam it out, but I hear you, RJ.
Yeah, I share sentiments you guys do. And I mean, I think just to like close out set one, like part of the reason I chose this show is because of set one. I just think
Mhm.
that the selection of Slave
Sorry,
opening.
I feel bad now.
No, because I don't disagree with you. Like I think your points are incredibly valid. Like the area that's most interesting to me is the first four songs. Like going Slave, Disease, What's the Use, Maze is a very strange way to start a show. It's a lot of like low to high to low to high, and then
Exactly.
go Farmhouse as well. But to also do it with songs that were just like Slave is one of those songs that when it starts, you are supposed to be like sweaty and exhausted and a little bit sore and just like I need that like feeling like of okay, one last song, let's like raise our hands to the heavens. And that's just kind of how it's been programmed over 35 years at this point in time of the band playing it either in an encore or to end usually a second set. To
But
have
doesn't it
it
like trip your programming when it comes at that
yes,
moment? It like put your
that's the
brain like,
thing.
this is
It
great.
it,
I'm
Yeah.
not
it
all sweaty,
changes
but I
everything.
know this feeling.
100%. And
Yeah.
it takes like what RJ said, that contemplative, slow open, that like deep breath almost, and it puts it at the front of the show. And that is a weird thing, and that is a really cool thing. And that to me, that then playing Disease, and it kind of jams, but it doesn't. And then a full stop. And like Megan said, it's very strange to have What's the Use not segue out of a jam, just start cold. And then to have that fade into Maze, it's just a lot of really strange emotions and feelings as the show is kicking off. And by the time Maze ends, we're only 40 minutes into the show, and we've had this like very interesting journey that has nothing almost to do with improvisational jamming, nothing even to do with bust outs. It's songs that are played often,
Yeah.
just in strange plot places. And when we look ahead to 2017, 2018, but especially now, like 4.0 Fish, where the band will just kind of play anything at any slot in the show. To me, it all kind of starts at this point in Fish history. And it starts with the Chula show that opens with Farmhouse and then gets going with a Ghost to end this very strange summer tour, continues with this, goes into the fall. We're just starting to hear a band tinker with their set lists in a way that beyond the jams, and we're going to get into a really good jam in set 2, beyond the jams, they're trying to figure out what can work in other places in the show and how can that affect people's emotions.
Yeah, that's a good point, Brian, just about the jam, the kind of, I mean, we've said it before a million times, but like you can't get 2017 without 2016, you know, it's sort of obvious
Yeah.
point, but you do see the sound, I think, start to, and the song choices. Like we talked about that Kill Devil Falls last week, which,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
one of the first kind of like regular songs to go out there. And now it's kind of, they're like sort of building on that, which will peak the following year. It's
Do you
wild.
think they knew they were going to do the Baker's Dozen at this point?
Yeah,
They had to be in conversation.
Right.
They were at
looking
least
at
So,
talking
like-
about it. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
I
mean, that's
wonder
just
how
such a
much
big,
that's-
such a big
Yeah.
amount of time to reserve. I feel like, and this is what, 7-8 months before,
Yeah.
or almost a year, I guess.
Yeah, so they would definitely know probably. So I don't know. I just feel like that might have also affected there. We have to start thinking about, you know, what we can play where, when we can jam things out, weird placements. Yeah.
I'm
So
on the
cool
same
to think
page with you. That's like they're always thinking in the present, but like they have to know something's coming, and they're taking most of the early part of 2017 off. That is not booked
Yeah,
at this point in
exactly.
time. So yeah, they have to be thinking about what is next.
hmm
Really great first set. Thank you, Brian, for choosing this. I have to choose the show for next week, and like
That's so
I don't
hard.
envy you.
I don't even like
That's
know.
so
Can we
hard.
just do the year instead?
Exactly.
Sure.
That's so
You
tough.
basically
hard.
can't go wrong.
That's
Like
true.
that's the nice thing.
Except for
Yeah,
that one
that's true.
show, which is probably the one I'll pick. Um,
I know which show that is.
all right, Brian, shall we move to set 2?
Let's do it. All right, so we got Fuego fading into Sand, fading into Blaze On, going right into Simple, fading into Twist, fading into Theme from the Bottom, fading into 2001, and fading into Harry Hood with an encore of Squirming Coil. I think that there's a lot more to dig into here.
Mhm.
I'm just going to start just because I don't know when I have to jump off, but part of my reason for picking this show based on set 1 definitely extends here into set 2, where you get a little bit more standard set listing, but you also start to hear kind of these habits that started up in that were pretty ever present throughout 2016, where like a jam would kind of lead to a cool space and then it would just be abandoned because for whatever reason the band wasn't necessarily feeling it in the moment. And so you get like Fuego reaches a cool noise space. Okay, this goes to Sand. My only note for Sand is maybe this will work. Doesn't really work, just kind of like goes to a peaking
So
rock jam,
true.
fades, right? Fades to
Yeah.
Blaze On. There's this very cool sustained note segment from Trey where he's like holding these notes and Fishman is doing this like very sporadic drumming that you can kind of hear the band try to figure out what is going on here. That kind of builds and builds and builds, doesn't actually lead anywhere. That goes into Simple. Pause on Simple for a second. That then, we get a Twist, Theme from the Bottom. Okay, kind of weird slots for these two songs. Goes into 2001. 2001 of note has been played at 5 out of 11 Saturday night Dick shows throughout the years. It's just like if they don't know what to do on a Saturday night, they play a 2001, and then it fades into a Hood. You've got this like really cool rhythmic chordal jamming in 2001. This goes into Hood, which is beautiful, really gorgeous peaks. Page is amazing. Mike is dropping bombs at the end. This was kind of an era where like when in doubt, Mike would just throw down one of those bass, growls, and the whole like you'd feel it in your belly. But to me, the peak of this set is the Simple, and the Simple shows Trey doesn't play guitar for most of the jam. He's on the Marimba Lumina for most of it. But the Simple shows a band that is trying to, similar to like in 96 when he would go to that second drum kit and allow Page and Mike to guide the melody of the jam. He is trying to inspire his bandmates to lead a jam somewhere. And in some cases, you can hear very clearly why, if Trey is not leading jams and Fish, or if he's not the guitar out front melody, there's a reason why Fish is not Fish without that. But in other cases, you hear these weird tinkerings, and you hear Page leading the melody on the Rhodes. You hear Fishman offering very weird repetitive beats. You hear Trey coming back. There's no peak to this jam. It's just like chordal jams. This to me sounds again like a hint of where we're going in 2017. So I've jumped around on this set. I'm going to pause and throw it to one of you guys, and we can kind of go through this. Jonathan, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I really dig this set, and I find it interesting that the way you talk about, like discarding the jams or whatever. I mean, obviously they're not long jams, and Fuego, yeah, it does kind of start to get somewhere, but then they roll into sand. I wasn't dissatisfied. Maybe it's just because I'm used to Fuegos of late that don't go long. Whereas in 2016, we were, the memories of 2014 Fuegos was still fresh, right? Sand, I really like the sand, but it is just tight. It doesn't really get beyond, sand. It is rocking, but I really love this Blaze On. I think this
Totally.
is just like the jamming that they get to in here is kind of my shit. Trey is just like reaching and layering like whale kind of, whammy rips, and like it's really cool. And I think that if the simple doesn't happen, this is my absolute maybe number 2 moment of the show, behind the encore. And it's just really gorgeous and cool. And then the simple jam is great. I think you've covered it, like described it ably, Brian, so I won't rehash, but I really like that. Twist rips, themes good. 2001's fine. Harry Hood is beautiful. It's like 15 minutes long. Great, beautiful peak. It's not like atypical or anything, but absolute perfect space that Harry Hood should take you to. And then the encore, man, like Coil as an encore, always good. But then Mike stays out, and it is
So
absolutely it's awesome. You can hear there's this one part where it feels like Mike is kind of he's playing this like descending bit that reminds me of the Wedge. And it's just like, I was trying to explain to my wife in the car before it happened, as we were listening yesterday, driving around. I was like, this is like a once it's happened one. It's
One time.
singular, and she didn't care. And that is great.
You usually don't. It sucks.
Yeah.
There are
she
6
likes it.
jam
She just doesn't
charted
care.
coils. This is one of them, and this is the only one that ends
But
like this.
This
It's so
ending
cool.
is the significant.
Really cool.
Like it's
And you
so
can
good.
hear it build through the song, where Mike is just like playing in a way that the band is like, okay, we can't do this. Is his. This is for
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, I wonder if that was like something they talked about before, because it's like Paige's spot, and it's so cool that
Seems like they
did
knew
that.
what they were doing.
Yeah, smart. I love
It's
that.
really cool.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
just-
I think that. Oh, go ahead, RJ.
Well, I only have one comment, which is I looked back at my text because I texted Brian and I was trying not to offend Brian, but I was like, just so I'm clear, like that little like quiet weird jam in Blaze On was the first interesting thing I've heard all show. Like, is that like? And he was like, you were like, yeah. I'm like, okay, great. That's all I got.
You're like, I'm not wrong, right? I'm not wrong.
But everything else is. But like you do listen to it, like you said, it's like trying a thing. It's like, okay, cool, sand, great, all right, and then it like goes, and you're like, all right, that it's kind of like the Blaze On like hits you, and then the simple. Those are great pieces. But yeah, interesting set in that way.
I think that searching quality is actually something I like. Sometimes it doesn't really work, but I think in this set it actually works pretty well. There is really decent flow to this set too. I think that in the Fuego jam, it kind of dwindles down to nothing, and you can almost hear it like drifting. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's almost as if they decided to hold on to that kind of searching and drifting feeling, and Sand gets away from that, and maybe they were trying to push and find something more energetic because they really like get after it in that Sand Jam, like you were saying, Jonathan, and Page just absolutely destroys, and then they have that like tight return to the song. But then Blaze On, you can feel them again with that searching feeling and how Trey's like distorting and bleeding out his notes, and it turns into like a meditative like drone. And even though it's within kind of the Blaze On universe, it has this like just kind of melting, drifting feeling. And then I feel like they really find that in Simple in this floaty, blissy, just I love Trey on the marimba Lumina there, just how they all sound so bubbly, and it just has this this kind of like weightlessness to it that I think that they were kind of like playing with in the beginning of the set. And I think it's cool that they found it here and weren't trying to like push something that wasn't working. And I mean, sometimes jamming is like that, right? You like try something, it doesn't work, you go on to the next song. But I think the Simple definitely makes the set kind of like worth it. And I really liked listening to this whole set as a whole. I think it has a really nice kind of like ride to it. It's a nice journey. And the theme is really kind of triumphant at the end, if that makes sense. It has like this really powerful ending that's, I don't know, it gets into this like funk space, and then it's like has just this like understated triumph to it that's really nice, and they land really well. 2001 is, it just feels like a throwaway here, Brian. It kind of feels like what you're saying about just like plopping it in because it's super hurried. It doesn't have that kind of like lackadaisical, like, I don't know, confidence to it. It feels kind of like rushing and pushing. But then they go to Hood and it's just beautiful. And Page just plays with such passion in this Hood. Absolutely incredible. Trey's like echoing him. It's beautiful. And I think that it's so cool because when I was listening to it, I forgot about this Mike solo. And I was thinking, oh yeah, of course they're playing Coil. Page is just killing it in this show. And then Mike steps in for the solo. And it's like, oh, it's just one of those like unexpected Fish moments. Love it. I like this show a lot. I really love the second set. I thought it was a great listen. The whole set as like a piece.
Yeah, because I went through, I thought about 9/4 the next night, which is an incredible show. 12:30 is an incredible show. 10:29, 10:30, 10:28, which was a dinner and movie. Those are incredible shows. There's some great shows on fall. To me, this show signified 2016 in the sense that, Jonathan, Megan, you guys noted it with the Sand, with the theme, with the Hood. One thing that they were doing really well this year was just playing their big songs really well in a straight fashion, which is like emblematic of like 96 as well. Like there are some great, if you just want to hear a killer Harry Hood or a killer Reba, you could do worse than go to 1996. Like there are just like pure, no effects, no weird jamming. The next year, the year before, they'll take those songs and they'll do a lot of weird things with them. Very similar here. If you want to go and listen to an 8-minute tight rocking version of Sand, this is a great version. If you want to listen to just a straightforward emotional Harry Hood, this is an awesome version. The next year they're going to take those songs and be like, hey, look what else we can do with them. And so this year is this kind of bounce back between Fish playing Fish really, really well and Fish trying here and there some interesting diversions and interesting risks that will pay off in a year's time. And the show kind of, moved back and forth between that for me in a really cool way.
I know this is definitely our fastest 40 for 40. Because we've already talked about the entire show.
So impressed with us. It's unbelievable.
Can I throw out something else that happened this year that I think is just worth noting? And I don't have a lot to say on it. But in 2016, 2015, we made a lot of hay about Fare Thee Well, and rightly so. Fish played Lock-In here in 2016 and, put themselves in front of, Festival again, which they hadn't done for a little bit since with Bonnaroo, I guess, a few years earlier, something like that. And and it was good, but somebody in the comments who I've scrolled off my screen, I apologize, makes correctly notes that they really deliver festival Fish sets, kind of it's not particularly the second night, not a lot of like big out there in anything, but also at that festival, Phil and Friends played in a set that was ostensibly Phil with the Incredible String Dusters, but also Page and Fish performed with him for the entire show.
Awesome.
On piano and drums, and then had Susan Tedeschi and Derek Trucks sit in for a couple songs as well. and it was very cool. It's very cool, and highly recommend if you want to hear it. It's out there and like on Relist under Phil Lesh. I recommend it for just an unusual thing, but you get to hear Paige playing on Scarlet Begonias and Shakedown Street and Terrapin Station.
Hell yeah.
Pretty rad. So yeah, check that out. 8/27/16. I think it's nice that it's just nice that they to bring them in, bring Fishman over into that universe, because Paige obviously had Phil and Friends experience.
And sorry to interrupt, Jonathan, but
Yeah,
a highlight for our friends from the String Dusters who are huge Dead fans and huge Fish fans. And actually, like Lock-In has not been back since before COVID, and they
2019.
really brought a lot of people together in a
Really
way.
good fest.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good fest, cool
I just-
location, convenient to me.
Yeah, it's convenient to Jonathan. Most importantly, can we just
Yeah.
use the last 5 minutes to talk about 2017 as we look forward?
Can I just say one quick thing about
Yes.
2016 before we go?
Yes.
We did not mention this, but 2016 is filled with 3 shows that I would love for someone to build an argument to me about them being quality, because I think that they can only be explained as a practical joke on their fans. And they are 7/6 from Portland, 7/22 from LA, and 10/25 from Grand Prairie, Texas. Just look at those set lists, listen to those
Again.
shows. I have no idea what is going on in those shows other than the band being like, look how many songs we can play.
Yeah,
I just want somebody to explain Grand Prairie, Texas.
that Grand Prairie thing is
Yeah.
it's odd.
At
It's
all.
like it might just be
confusing.
like the hotel is just like doesn't work or something about it.
Lumpy
um,
mattresses.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so next week we're tackling 2017. So I want to ask you guys. This is a live brainstorm.
Oh boy.
Are we going to do it on the day after Thanksgiving?
I can.
I'm around.
Possibly.
nothing.
I'm in Portland, but I can make it work. I can steal away, maybe TBD. But
Okay.
if I have to miss, it's okay.
Wait, I gotta
Little
go
mystery.
and raid a Target. I'm sorry, I won't be able to do this.
Saturday.
Oh,
Brian's
you
gonna
should
be
be out of there
filling
by
out
then. You're
lines
going to
for
be
a
there at like
UPC
3 a.m.
7
You're going to be
a.m.
out
No,
there
I'm
out
not.
by
I
8.
don't, I don't,
Actually,
I don't do
think
this.
I'm-
Do not post this anywhere. I am not a Black Friday shopper. Okay, let's just be clear.
Not
I've
yet.
been known to Black Friday
Yeah.
shop, but this I might be going out to the coast on Friday to Cannon Beach. I don't know. We'll see. I'll let you know.
Well, I just want you to know, I'm Saturday. I'm out all day from 6 a.m. to midnight. I'm going to be preparing for, then watching, then reacting to a football game, and then Sunday is going to be a continuation of that.
I'm just
So
gonna
I'm-
text you fish questions all day Saturday.
I'm like, I'm
Can't
out
wait.
Do
for the
it.
whole thing. But also, okay, so we'll figure that out, guys. We might come to
Figure it
you.
out.
We'll try to come to you on Friday. I think would be cool because
Be
we
fun.
have flexibility on timing generally. I think some of us
Yeah.
anyway. We'll figure that out.
Open.
But
a
I'm-
day off.
I'm kind of here are the 2 shows that I'm thinking about for next week.
Oh my God, we're gonna go into it. Okay, let's hear it.
Number 1 is 725 because like if you're going to talk about the Baker's Dozen, if you're going to talk about 2017, you might as well talk about like the most interesting, coolest thing that happened the entire year. The other
Yeah.
choice to me would be 8-1 because I was at that show and I think that was the 4th show I saw, and I think it's sort of like a little bit controversial. There are like some ups and downs, and I think people like didn't like parts of it. So or
I think-
8-5 because like that's like the celebration of the whole thing, but I think it's been done.
It's been done.
They've
but
all been
that
done.
should Change my life.
I went to
but-
8-5. I didn't go to the other 2, so I'm vote against both.
I think 8-1 is a really bold and interesting call. Personally speaking, I think that the golden age from that show is the best Trey sounded the entire Baker's Dozen. There's so much happening there under the surface. I love
But
that second
do
set.
the people just want the jam night? Do the
I
people
would
should we
vote
give the people
against
what they
Jam
want?
Filled because
Yeah.
I
What
think
i-
the Jam Filled has been
It's been
talked
too
about
much.
endlessly.
Wow.
I
Probably
would
way
choose
more
the
than
following
8-5.
night.
Wow.
I would
Wow.
choose the following night, Powder Night. That is a really
Ooh.
interesting show. The first set looks really tame on paper, but everything has a micro jam in it. The second
Brian
set
just wants to talk about
blows.
Powderfinger.
and I just want to cry about not seeing Neil Young play
Yeah.
Powderfinger. That's it.
Yeah.
Those would be my 2 picks. I think I don't think you can necessarily go wrong because we're going to talk about the year overall, but I think
Okay.
8-1 has a ton to dig into.
I think it's cool to pick shows that people haven't talked about as much.
Ditto.
All right. If you're listening, leave us a voicemail. Tell us what you would pick as the 2017 show or your general thoughts on 2017. I hope we get a lot of feedback because, man, that was quite a year for Fish. All right. So we're gonna come to you next Friday, hopefully, but if not, another time soon with a show that we will tell you about at some point between now and then.
Well, we have lots of information coming to you. It's just not here yet.
This is
Soon,
great.
very soon.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Just pick
11:29.
a show from Mexico 2017 and let's
Yeah.
just be like, I got something
That
within the year.
This has not been talked about much.
We did
Oh my
actually
God.
2 years ago. It was a very
Mhm.
good episode. Jonathan, Megan, and I.
I don't
also,
remember that.
New Year's Eve, MSG, the triumphant return of Fish after 4
Oh
months.
man, I was
and
at that
3
New
That
Year's
was
Eve
the
show.
best.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That whole run is really good.
So
highly
fun.
recommend.
That's my only New Year's Eve show ever.
Really? Wow.
Yep.
Interesting.
It's crazy. I know. Okay.
No wonder
Thanks,
you're such
everybody.
a Swiftie.
I know. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for all the voicemails. Keep them coming. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Brian.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.